Agreeganism is a life philosophy that applies to a way of living life that is in harmony with the earth and our bodies. It's both spiritual, ethical, and practical. What Agreeganism is at its core is if you take two words, agree and veganism, and you put it together, you get Agreeganism. What this means, these two core tenets, which is agreement and veganism, are two main aspects of the life philosophy. It's not vegan, first of all. That's what has to be really clear. There's already something called vegan. Agreeganism, or an agreegan, is someone who agrees with the stance of a vegan, but does not have that level of discipline or has certain compromises in it that makes them not a vegan. And to honor the vegan movement, it's good to use a separate term. Agreeganism is still very much tied into the awareness of factory farms, because the vegan movement, a lot of it comes from this mass exploitation that's taking place that regular consumers are paying for. This isn't so much like a government coming in and exploiting a population, which is also wrong, and we are usually against that. This is the general public funding an organization to breed animals into a life of suffering and exploiting them for their fluids and their skin. So it's a major atrocity that is hidden from society. So it's really important for us to become aware of that, and the Agreegan movement is very much about bringing that awareness into society. Agreeganism has very much strongly tied into the word agreement. So it's once I'm studying how to take this approach where it's much more uplifting. It's much more about how much better life is when you free yourself from what's called the Meatrix. How many advantages there are when you tune into healthy plant-based foods as your primary food source. It is by far a better life, and I really want to try to capture this because I know it's hard to tell from the outside, and you might be judging, oh look, he's got hair loss or something like that, which is totally unrelated. I grew up on animal products, and I then had an awakening and changed my diet, and I'm so much happier because of it. You hear that a lot from people who go vegan. It's like, I just wish I had gone sooner. But Agreeganism is a much more manageable step. Another aspect of Agreeganism is it takes veganism, it studies veganism, and it tries to work through some of the flaws. And some of these flaws are not due to the vegans themselves, they're due to people who impose their false beliefs on veganism. So there are 7 precepts of Agreeganism, which go over a lot of these points, what are the most valuable ideas, and some of the fixes to veganism that an Agreegan can show up in a space and stand for something meaningful and not be attacked in the ways that vegans get attacked with faulty logic or it's just a very strong stance. It's very practical. It's very much like, I'm a human being. I live in a culture, in a society. I have a family. And when people make food for me, I would like to eat it. That's a big part of Agreeganism. And I don't want to see food go to waste. But I do choose plant-based. And I do have control over my future. And I do understand the gut biome. And I know that it takes a while to adjust your diet and have the best results. But when you do, it's phenomenal. And that's a big part of Agreeganism, is the empowerment, the spiritual clarity you get from it, the groundedness from it, and the fact that you're a person in society who's woken up from a collective disease, a mind virus that we need to eat animals or animal exploitation is normal. None of that is true, and it's destroying the environment. It's destroying our relationship with animals and the earth. And it causes people to have blind spots, because if you're inside the Meatrix, meaning you believe the lie that you need meat and that animal exploitation is just part of the game of life, then you're also going to be blind to other things. There's a couple concepts I want to portray in this The first is, if you imagine 100 years ago, there were people around who owned slaves. And that's a mentality to own a human being. It's a much bigger problem, of course, but there is a relatability because now that we live in the 21st century, we know that's wrong. And people wouldn't do that. If somebody says, hey, can I sell you some slaves? People will say, no, I don't want that. In the same way, the same topic in the future will be the same, where people, right now, there are people who are waking up and going, hey, I don't think we should be doing that, and I don't need it, and my life is better without it. Just like the slavery concept. If you cause sentient beings to suffer, you will experience suffering. If you attempt to deny or be ignorant of suffering that you cause, it always comes back and hurts you. The way in which it does it can be a little bit complex, but there are a lot of ways that you can see, and the most obvious one is heart disease. Heart disease is caused by animal fats. Your heart literally dies because you don't care. That's metaphorical, I know but that's one of these ways that karma comes back and gets you. Another subtle one is that if you are in the Meatrix and you're completely ignorant, when you walk into a place where people have awoken from this, you look foolish. I mean, I've heard meat eaters say some of the dumbest things. And it's clearly because they're looking for ways to justify their particular incorrect belief system. And I want to try to get people who are out inside the Matrix to understand that once you're outside of it, you can see clearly. And that's something that's really beautiful. Another phenomenon that happens that it kind of ties into this is some people go plant-based for health reasons. I mean, a lot of people do. The doctor says, hey, look, your body's getting screwed over because you're eating so many animal products and your body can't take it. You just have a terrible diet and you have to go plant-based because otherwise you're going to suffer and you have to take medicine for the rest of your life and your life will be shortened. And then so people, or sometimes people study something and they see, oh, I see, Alzheimer's are often from people eating animal products. So if you don't want that, and for health reasons, you may choose a plant-based diet. Oftentimes, when somebody goes plant-based, they naturally are removed from the Matrix. And once they're removed from the Matrix, they can see the Matrix and they can feel, oh my gosh, I didn't realize when I was in the Matrix what it was like. We're all susceptible to that. We're all potentially within the brainwashing of our society, and we cannot see it unless we can step outside of it. And that's one of the most phenomenal things that happen when you get this mentality. And Agreeganism is a much more approachable way to get there. If you're capable of going to vegan, then go for it. But Agreeganism is a stance that is strong, it's clear, it's spiritual, it's ethical, and it's in alignment with the values of the 21st century. Now that we're globalized, we have a lot more research on medical, we have a lot more resources to buy foods that are healthy and the information of what to do. For example, over here I have some sprouting going on to increase the nutritional value. And plant-based can also be, a lot of plant foods are high nutritional, low density food. So they're food that takes up more space and has more nutrients, but has less caloric value, which means it's more filling. You can eat a lot of it and feel full, and it's natural weight regulation, meaning like you lose weight on a plant-based whole food diet. And particularly the diet that I'm most interested in with alignment with Agreeganism, if you want to go into the science of it, is Nutritarianism. And that's more on the side of how do we eat in such a way that we're in alignment with our bodies and get the best results and the best quality life that we can get. That Nutritarianism is perfect alignment with Agreeganism because it allows for a small amount of animal products. I think it's at up to 10% of your diet. So that's pretty large when you recognize how much food that we eat. Another part of Agreeganism is this is a conversation with society. It's a conversation with people in our society. And there's, like I mentioned, people who are inside the matrix don't want to change. And they'll fight to defend their prison. And also for complex reasons. I mean, a lot of people have damaged guts, and it takes at least 2 weeks to kind of like repair a gut, like get the bacteria back that digest food. And that's maybe a little bit uncomfortable for people. Also, a lot of meat eaters have it in their identity. They're like, I eat meat, that is my identity. I do it for pleasure. It's who I am. And anyone who has an identity connected with it will always show signs of addiction. Will always show signs that they cannot let it go. You can, if somebody has in their mind that meat eating is part of their identity, it's almost a lost cause. I mean, you can say this, you can speak the truth. You can just say like whatever you need to say that feels true in the moment. But those people are not ready to be free. They're not ready to get to the next level. It's too much work. There's a lot of things happening in life. We're not really capable of getting to growing all the time. So it's still important to teach by example, which is one of the 7 precepts of Agreeganism. To show up, to go to a restaurant and buy some delicious plant-based foods, and to not be under the spell of animal products that people seem to be consumed by, and with detrimental effects of their life and the environment and the future for humanity. Because this is a race against time, and that's why it's so important. A big part of this is that it's okay if, one of the things that people who ate animal products and are in the Meatrix can say sometimes is, I don't want people to tell me what to eat. You do you, I do me. And that's true under certain circumstances. Like, for example, I don't need to go around and tell people not to smoke. They basically know it's bad for them. They're addicted. It's bad for the air around them and everything. But it's not a big deal. It's a choice that really just affects them. So I agree. I'm not going to go around and tell people that smoking is bad and alcohol hurts your liver. And it's just not needed because that's their journey. The reason that Agreegans as well as vegans feel the need to just spread this wisdom and knowledge and awareness is because we are a community. We're a collective of humans. The big problem with eating animal products is that it's exploitation. It's not you doing something and it damages you. It's literally taking a sentient being, breeding them into an existence of suffering, and then taking their fluids and their skin and consuming it into your body. It is not a victimless crime. So when an Agreegan or a vegan goes to somebody and says, this diet is so good, I highly recommend it. It frees you from the matrix. You get to another level on your life, wherever that is, with awareness, with presence, with health and well-being. And you can step into this society in a way that you're free from the matrix, and people can see it. People who are outside the matrix can see the matrix. I know people inside the matrix cannot. Unless they're awakening at that time, because some people can have an awakening, recognize the matrix within them. It's rare. It's pretty rare to go that way, but there's a good percentage of people who will do that. But for the most part, people who are addicted or have this connected to their personality or identity cannot see any other way. They will say the most ridiculous arguments to justify what they believe. So the main reason that Agreegans and vegans will talk about it is because there is a victim. There is a sentient being. There's an entire industry that just causes suffering. It causes environmental destruction. And it's a huge, huge problem. And there are a lot of big problems in the world. So this is just one big one that we can do something about. And the great news and the empowering part about it is that when you become free, life gets better. That's a really important part. The last precept of Agreeganism is celebrate freedom. You cannot be a hypocrite and celebrate freedom and say, I'm a spiritual person, but I pay for the exploitation of sentient beings. That's not possible unless only through hypocrisy and ignorance. So the way that we celebrate freedom as people who are free from the matrix is by saying, I love my freedom. I am so blessed by my freedom, and I wouldn't pay to have that taken away from other sentient beings that I deem not important. It's a celebration. So it's like recognizing that who's free? People who are free are people who recognize that they are free and also allow other beings to be free. Because if you can imagine, how can a person be free when they're causing other beings to be caged? It doesn't work like that in the world. You can't be spiritual and aware and ignorant and callous at the same time, because they conflict and they cause problems. And the person who's experiencing that conflict won't necessarily understand, because with blindness, you cannot tell what's going on. But I gave some examples about heart disease, this subtle thing about people judging you or recognizing, like, oh, that person's in the Meatrix. I don't know if I want to be around people in the Meatrix, or I don't respect that person because they fully, like, you can respect them in other ways, but it's like that person doesn't get it. And so I personally don't feel like I would follow a spiritual leader who doesn't have an awareness about the Meatrix, animal products, and this particular topic. And even though I recognize that a lot of people do have pretty damaged guts, and some people, it's hard for them to switch away from it because they've been in it so long that it's kind of damaged. So that's the place, that's what I want to share about Agreeganism and the place it is right now, about a life philosophy that is about empowerment, it's about freedom, it's about health and well-being. It's about recognizing that all sentient beings are sacred. And that's so wonderful to be a part of and to recognize. And I have on the table here, you may have seen, on this side I have a fasting cleanse that I'm on right now. I'm on day 4 of a cleanse. I feel really good. And on this side I have all my sproutings that I'm going to do, because I'm going to end my cleanse in a couple days. And then I would like to have some sprouted beans and seeds ready for me. I'm also going to plant some in the yard. So that's, I just want to share a little bit check-in about Agreeganism, what's behind it, what's it mean, why it's important, why people would go out and talk about these topics in these ways, why Agreeganism is such a strong position to be in when you really study and you stand in the face of somebody who's in the Meatrix, because those are the ones who will always push back or create conflict. Because people who are outside of the Meatrix, there's just an agreement. It's just like, oh yeah, totally. Like, it's a breeze to talk to people who are outside of the Meatrix, because they get it. But people inside the Meatrix always think that vegans and Agreegans are conflicted, and Agreeganism is really the study of how do you express these massive advantages you get from breaking free from the Meatrix, which you cannot see while you're in it. And so that's what I'm studying. I'm trying to get the vibe right now, and slowly move into this area and this discussion style, which is able to talk about philosophy and spirituality and ethics, health and wellness, from a perspective that's flexible, that's agreeable, that's fun and easy and pleasant. That's and those are the qualities that this particular way of life is most in alignment with.